Hey everyone, welcome to EDU 5253. In this video, I just wanted to quickly walk you all through what's in our syllabus. Now, this isn't meant to be a replacement for actually reading the syllabus. Please still do so. But in this, I wanted to give you an overview of what's in the syllabus and bring to your attention a few important points. And I've divided my syllabus overview video into two parts. So in this part, I'm going to be talking about everything in the syllabus except for the assignments and the rubrics, and those I will be covering in a part 2 video. So if you open the syllabus, the first thing you'll see is the course information and my contact information. And for this course, please do call me Rachel. I know in some cultures it's considered disrespectful to call a teacher by their first name, so if you fall into that category, I usually go by Mix or MX Grant, MX being a gender-neutral honorific, and my Bachelor of Education students often call me Miss Rachel, which I'm also fine with. And I am a part-time assistant professor here at the University of Ottawa, as well as being a PhD candidate, and I am a full-time hand sanitizer enthusiast, even before the pandemic, and that's probably because I used to be a nurse. And the best way to get a hold of me is email. I am available to Skype and Zoom with you. I have Teams as well. So if you ever want a video conference, just let me know. And the course purpose is to critically survey theories in historical and contemporary perspectives and their pedagogical implications for classroom practices. Now, how are we actually going to do this? Well, a lot of this is going to be done in the group discussions you're going to be having, or in the multiliteracy circles, which we'll also be reflecting on in a portfolio. We're also going to be working on writing our philosophy of teaching and learning in this class. And if you have done that in a previous class with me, don't worry, I have an alternative for you. And at the end of the course for your final project, you are going to be exploring a specific learning theory that really resonates with you and its application to your educational practice. So in this course, we're really going to be drawing on our own previous experiences, both as teachers and as learners. So if you don't have teaching experience yet, don't worry. We're also going to be drawing on the experience of our peers in our discussion groups. And of course, we're also going to be looking at what the scholarly literature says about learning theories and their practical application. So let's talk briefly about student support services. So at the beginning of the syllabus, I list some important support services that are here to help you. Please do take some time to review these. And two of them I really want to draw your attention here to are the librarians and the Indigenous Resource Center. So for the librarians, I would say that these are the unsung and completely underutilized heroes of our university. A lot of students don't realize that the librarians are here to help you. The Faculty of Education even has its own librarian who you can reach out to. So check out page 4 of our syllabus if you want some more details on this. And the Indigenous Resource Center is fantastic. They work with the university and services to develop initiatives that support First Nations, Inuit, and Métis students at the university. And they also have resources and services for those students. However, they are also a fantastic resource for those of us that are not Indigenous who want to learn more about Indigenous issues. In my own experiences as a learner and an educator here at U Ottawa, I found that they really love seeing Indigenous issues and educational perspectives integrated into the quote-unquote mainstream core curriculum. And I have consulted them with before on some of my projects as a student, and they even came to one of my classes actually when I was doing a group project on Indigenous feminism. And I've also had a lot of my students go there for help on some of their projects, such as students who've done projects on the history of the residential schools. And my students have all described their experience going here to be very welcome, and they even lent them some resources and books, which is pretty nice of them. Following this in the syllabus, I share some important policies. And I'm not going to read through all of these on camera, so do take a few moments to read them on your own. There are a few, though, that I want to highlight here. So first is attendance. So if you look at the university policies, attendance is compulsory in our faculty, but you may be wondering, how do we actually do that in an online asynchronous class? Well, instead of having traditional class, we're going to be doing online activities. So for example, our first couple of weeks, we're going to be doing more traditional discussions on Brightspace discussion boards, if you will. Followed by that, you're going to be doing group discussions in your MLC modules. And your participation here is going to be reflected in the reflective portfolio that you're going to be keeping, as well as the self and peer evaluation at the end of the MLC process. And then, of course, I can also tell by going onto Brightspace and looking at how often you've been logging on and things like that, but I really only look like that if I have a student that I'm concerned about. Otherwise, I usually don't pay too much attention to that, because I don't find it's the best indicator of how well a student is participating. So some advice from me as someone who has taken and taught many online courses. I will say my biggest piece of advice is don't leave your online coursework until the last day of a module and then just try to blast through everything on the final night. You're not going to learn as much this way, and neither will your group members because you're not really engaging. And that interaction with your peers is so key to learning in a class like this. Plus, this is just a really stressful approach to an online class. So I recommend logging in for a few minutes every day, maybe even just 15 minutes at night. So for example, you may want to pop into your portfolio in the evening for about 10-15 minutes and just jot down a few notes on your thoughts about that module so far. And then you can always return to these notes later when you have a bit more time, such as on the weekend. I've also seen other students and their MLC group members use a lot of WhatsApp and other messaging services like that. So they just kind of message a little bit throughout the week about the course materials, and then they may take a little bit more time on the weekends when they have time. And so the next policy I want to draw your attention to is the late assignment policy at U Ottawa, which is they take 5% off per day up to a maximum of 10 days if something is late. I'm really not a fan of deducting marks for late assignments because I think assignment and feedback should really reflect your learning, not so much penalizing you from being late. I also acknowledge that you are all adults, you're all very busy, and sometimes life just happens, especially during the pandemic. So please do email me if you need an extension on anything, even if it is the night before. Just reach out to me. That being said, I do need to have all of your assignments all submitted by a certain date because at a certain point I am required to submit marks to the faculty. And if I get them in late, that can impact things like students' graduation and things like that. Now, if you find yourself in a difficult situation, there are ways that we can do things like defer marks if it's an exceptional circumstance, such as illness. But at that point, we need to involve the faculty, so it's not a decision that just lies with me, but do reach out to me if you find yourself in a situation like this at the end of the semester. So to summarize, if you need some more time on an assignment, all you need to do is reach out and ask for help. Next up is the accommodation of people with exceptionalities. Please do let me know if you need any sort of accommodation, regardless of whether or not you're registered with SAS. In the past, I have had a lot of learners who require accommodations but are not registered with SAS, which I'm more than happy to offer as long as it's an accommodation that I can actually provide. For example, I need SAS for things like if a student needs readings available in Braille because I don't have the capacity to do that on my own. But if it's something like offering closed captioning or giving you extra time on assignments, please do just reach out to me. And plagiarism, so academic integrity or fraud. So this one can be basically summarized as please just don't plagiarize. If you're unfamiliar with citing things properly in APA, just reach out to me and I can send you some resources. I've also done a video previously talking about some of the common APA mistakes I see in student assignments, and I can also do more videos on things like that if that is of interest to the class. I've also had students plagiarize in the past because of the pressure to get an assignment done on time. So please don't compromise the academic integrity of your work just for the sake of a deadline. Just ask for an extension, even if it's a paper that's due that night. The next part in the syllabus is the assignments. So we're going to skip that part for now, but please do join me in part 2 of this, where we are going to talk about the assignments, the grading scale, and the rubrics in depth. The course schedule. So on page 17 of our syllabus, you can find our course schedule, which includes the topics we're covering and the assigned readings. So here's our course schedule, and you'll notice there's no reading break this semester. And I'm really sorry, this is a university decision, it's not my decision. But I have made some modifications to what we're doing this semester and some of the assignments that I'm doing just to make things a little bit easier for you this semester. So hopefully that takes some pressure off. For our course structure, I've broken up our course into 6 modules with each of them lasting 2 weeks. So our first module here, which is what we are currently in, has a part 1 and a part 2. So part 1 is an introductory week when we're going to be focusing on getting to know each other, getting familiar with the course, and just getting ourselves generally organized for the semester. In our second week, we're going to be talking about theories of adult learning. And I thought this would be a good place to start since you are all adult learners. So regardless of how much teaching experience you may have, you all have a wealth of experience as learners who are now all adult learners. And hopefully talking about this early on will also help you see why we're doing certain activities and assignments in this course. But more on all of that next week. So for those of you who've taken EDU 5101, particularly with me, you may notice that I've organized the theories we're discussing predominantly around the 4 major moments in the evolution of modern schooling, as we discussed previously in our course. And for those of you who haven't taken 5101, or at least not with me, we read a book called Engaging Minds. Now, if you're new to teaching and education, I do recommend this as an introduction to education in modern schooling, at least within the Western context. So Engaging Minds is structured around 4 major moments in the evolution of modern schooling. So there's standardized education, authentic education, democratic citizenship education, and systemic sustainability education. So I've roughly used this structure when I was planning out our class, and I played around with several different ways of organizing our course material, but this one just made the most logical sense for me in terms of what I wanted us to cover in this course. So our first actual MLC module, or Module 2, has parallels to standardized education. So we're focusing on theories of individual learning and, of course, their practical application to our teaching practice. So we're going to be looking at more psychological theories of learning this week. Specifically, we're going to be talking about behaviorism and cognitivism. And so these are more objectivist theories of learning. So in Module 3, we're going to be talking about constructivisms, which radical constructivism was one that gets talked about in Authentic Education and Engaging Minds. And we're going to talk more about that one. We're also going to talk about some other theories that fall under this umbrella of thought, such as fixed and growth mindsets, because that's a very practical idea that we can apply to our teaching. We're also going to talk about social constructivism, which for those of you in 5101 falls under democratic citizenship education. But it fits really nicely with constructivism, and we're going to talk about more of that, of course, in Module 3. But essentially in this module, we are going to be starting to make that bridge between the more objectivist learning theories that focus solely on individuals and start to consider social or collectives in how we're understanding student learning. And then in Module 4, we're really going to get into learning theories that look more at the collective and social realm. So specifically, we're going to be looking at community of practice and situated learning, which is very popular in workplace learning and any sort of education with adults, such as health professions education. And we're also going to talk about critical pedagogy as well this week. And this is a pretty exciting module, and I'm quite looking forward to it. And then Module 5, which is our final MLC module, we're going to be talking about learning systems and the more than human world. So specifically right now, I've planned for us to look at complexity science, which is the learning theory that I tend to draw on most when I'm planning my teaching. And we're also going to be talking about the environment in this module. We're going to talk about technology. I would also like to add in another learning theory here, such as sociomateriality or actor network theory, but I'm having a really difficult time trying to find a very accessible article that explains these clearly and their application to actually teaching. So I may just talk about them in my videos that week rather than assigning a reading. I'll see what I can find this week for you. And in Module 6, our final module, we're going to be talking about what all of these different theories mean for instructional design. So where do they actually fit in when we're planning a course or lesson planning? And what does this all look like in our teaching environments? So what does behaviorism or constructivism actually look like in terms of how we might set up our classrooms? And as someone who really values learning theories that value that social interaction, like social constructivism and complexity science, what do I do when I'm assigned to teach in a lecture hall that actually has like the desks and chairs bolted down to the floor? So these are the types of conversations we're going to have in this final week. Now you'll notice in the syllabus that for some of our readings, I have foundational and focused readings. So the foundational ones are meant to be ones that are required for everyone to read, to give you all a baseline when you're having discussions in your group. And then the focus readings, you'll get to just pick one. And here I'm trying to capture a variety of different teaching contexts, so hopefully you can find something that really resonates with your interests. And you'll notice also that some of the readings are to be TBD or to be determined. So since we're a class that's actually on applying these theories to practice, I want to have readings that are actually going to be relevant to the different teaching contexts and interests in our class. And so I have started on that, but when I was finalizing the syllabus, I didn't have a really good sense of who was actually in the class. So I'm going to be finalizing them this week. And if you have any suggestions too from previous studies and things that you think would really be of interest to people in the class, please do send them to me. A couple of our focused readings this semester, for example, are ones that were actually suggested by previous learners. After the course overview, we have the bibliography, and this is a list of some peer-reviewed journals and books that may be of use to you. I can also make some recommendations based on your own personal interests as we go through the semester. And then on page 24 of the syllabus, I have some helpful online tools. And so these are the sites where you can create things like free websites, infographics, mind maps, things like that. And I do recommend holding on to this list because this could be something that helps you in your other courses. And that's it for part 1 of our syllabus overview. In part 2, we're going to talk more about the assignments, the grading scale, and the rubric. So for now, get up, stretch, refill your beverage. I think right now in our Menti poll for caffeinated beverage of choice, I think we're neck and neck between coffee and iced coffee. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up. And that's all for now, and I will see you all back here for part 2.